Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition, episode 1 of the Rocket Hour. I'm Ricky Pasternak, and I'm alongside with my co-host, Aaron Halterman. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Man, it is. This is a historic day, right, Ricky? It's your first ever show, and here we are. We're going to cover Gulfstream Park, where you were really hot over the summer. So, yeah, it's fun, man. I'm excited. We're going to do some different things on the show, right? So it's going to be exciting. I'm pretty pumped up for today.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right, where, you know, Gulfstream, it's so funny. We always talk about it's always open. And that's one of the great things we love as horse racing fans and fans of the sport. We're so excited to kind of see a track open all the time and we can really get into it. Obviously, with the winter and the new year rolling around, we're like, you know what, let's do this. Let's kick it off at Gulfstream right before the holidays. Let's really get involved and kind of give everyone an insight of how we're looking at the races, how we kind of look at past performances and all these different things. And that's what we're here to do. So, you know, we'll go through a little background information of how I got started and things like that. Before I do, though, I do want to thank Mr. Ryan Stillman. Ryan, I'm sure, is watching. And if you've watched live streams before or anything like that with Racing Dudes, you know how involved Ryan is and things like that. And he comes up with tunes for the Magic Mike show, for Blinkers Off, all these different things. So he was kind enough to send this to me last night as I was kind of preparing for the show. So we'll obviously incorporate this tune once we get more consistent going. And Magic was kind enough to kind of help make a video. But I want to play this tune for everyone and leave comments, anything like that. Tell us what you think of it.
It's the Rocket Hour. Y'all are now tuned in. Time to hit the pick 4 that you'd love to win. If your money's coming slow, step on the faster track with your host, Ricky Pasternak. Let's go.
There you go, man. So, yeah, Ryan's all over it. I told Ryan about the show last night at about 5 p.m., and by about 7, he had the music. So,
yeah, that's
freak. Magic's going to make a video with that. So, you're going to have your own opening video and everything next week. So, yeah. And listen, you said holiday season. The biggest holiday of all is today. It's Festivus. Happy Festivus to everybody out there as well. I mean, this is just a great day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, it's so exciting to kind of put this together. You know, I'll go through a quick big background of how I got into the sport. My dad owned horses, standardbred horses, and one of the things we got to do every summer when I was younger, he owned the horses, but we used to go to Saratoga, and we've had this conversation before. Obviously, it's unfortunate with COVID going on, just how we couldn't be there at Saratoga, and it's like a real gut punch to all of us because Saratoga and Santa Anita, if you're on the West Coast or even Churchill Downs, anything like that, it's just such a landmark. That's a place where you really need to get to. So we would go there every summer, and it's something that we look forward to 1 or 2 weeks out of a 52-week year. It's really important that we were able to get up there. And the best thing about horses, and I'm sure you agree, it's you're not playing against a sports book. You're not playing against the house. You're playing against each other. And one of the things that's so important when we talk about horses, and I learned this from Mike Somich, where is your advantage? How can you find your advantage? How can you isolate something that you think you have a spot or maybe some insight over the others? And I learned this from you too. It's like, it's not about how great something is. It's about where can you find value and things like that. So I think that's one of the things as horse players, we kind of think we know more maybe than other people, and it's nice. So that's how I got involved. And you guys have really shown me the way. And I think this is, in my respect, a way to kind of pay it back to you. You've taught me so much, and I'm just so excited to be doing this with you as we kick off the week before the new year and hopefully into 2021.
Yeah, I'm blushing over here. You're getting me. You're getting my heart going already. No, it's going to be good. We're going to do, we're going to just to get into it real quick. We're going to do a little bit of a different approach to it, to where we're going to cover 4 races. So like today, it's going to be Gulfstream race 7 through 10 for today. So it's a preview show for what's going to happen here in a few hours. And you're going to look at it from the multi-race, from a pick 4 standpoint. Here's how I handicapped it. Here's my ticket. Here's what we're doing. Where I'm going to take the race by race approach. Okay, here's race 7. Is a trifecta better here? Is a win better here? And we're going to do that to kind of, yes, it is a handicapping show. Yes, we're going to talk about the horses and stuff like that. But we're also going to get into into the minds of, okay, here's who we like. Now, how do we bet it? Because I think that's such an important angle. And not that our other shows don't capture that angle, but we're going to try to dig into it a little bit deeper. So it's kind of a half handicapping show and half betting strategies show. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. I think a lot of people spend too much time handicapping and not enough time planning the wagers. So that's kind of what we're going to get into on the show.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, when we kind of designed this show, that's what we really wanted to get into. Not that the recaps aren't important, not that any of those other things. The shows are great, and we've kind of just wanted to create more content. But it's kind of different where how many people are creating live shows the day of. And that's what really we kind of wanted to get into. And that's really the reason that we kind of created this and came up with this concept. So before we do that, I will scroll at the bottom, my pick 4 ticket, like Aaron said, and he's going to go kind of race by race. I'll kind of introduce what, the races and things like that. And we are only obligated to show the entries on equibase.com or anything sort of like that. But we encourage you to look at your past performances as well. However you get your information, time form, all those different things. We encourage you to do so you can follow along. So let's get into it. At the bottom, here is my multi-race ticket. And you'll see Aaron's as well. So the first race we're going to get into is race 7. It's 16,000 claimers for 3-year-olds and upward. And I'll start. And my top choice is Earth, out of the rail. And the reason I went there, I try to look for consistency at this level. Anywhere from usually 20,000 claimers and less, I try to find the most consistency, and I try to find horses with speed. This horse definitely will be on the front end, which I like. And at this class last time out, he held the lead for a while with Miguel Vasquez aboard. Miguel Vasquez doesn't have the highest percentage to start, but if you follow Gulfstream consistently, he's one of the better riders. He doesn't go anywhere else. And he finished 3rd at this level last time out. You could see that he's a turf sprinter. He's had some races on a sloppy track. He's had some races that were taken off the turf. But this is what he likes to do. And that was my top choice. I think this is a race where you could also find some prices. Obviously, we can get into a horse like Discretionary Mark later on, who I've included as well. But one of the other horses I wanted to look to was Marvista Miguel. And this is the horse that I kind of expected to get on the lead. I'll start by saying I don't love Carlos Montalvo. I'll be the first one to admit that. He has lost to a horse like Grand Malbec and Oak Bluffs in his recent race. But one of the things that he does, he's going to be on that inside. I think he's going to push Earth, and I think he's got to get to the lead. And that's one of the things that, in these turf sprints, it's a really delicate balance. How quickly can you get to the lead? How quickly can you do it? We've seen, we've talked about it all the time. We've seen first quarter sometimes in 20 seconds and 4/5 almost, or 21 flat, and that could almost be too detrimental. So those are the horses that I'm kind of keying in on. Is there, Aaron, how are you kind of looking at this turf sprint for 16,000 claimers?
Well, I think you've started off the show. I think you might be high a little bit. So that's a good start. I always encourage that for our Racing Dude show. Listen, I played a 4-horse trifecta box here, and I'll explain why I'm going to go that route for this specific race. I didn't use the 1 or 3 in the trifecta box. So I'll start off with the 1, Earth. Listen, I think if I was playing a pick 4, this would probably be a horse to include. I'm just kind of going to take a shot against here. I think there's a couple of different horses that offer a little bit more value. For whatever reason, it feels like Earth always takes money, so I just kind of, I know what you're saying, very consistent horse. I'm going to take a shot against today. So I didn't love Earth. Marvista Miguel, it was one I kind of thought of a little bit and considered. But in the end, I don't know, a little bit of a spotty form and just like long breaks between every single race. I know not today, but it just, it's like we see him and then he's gone for 244 days. We see him, he's gone for a year. So I don't know, maybe getting that second race in a row under his belt will help. But I actually went to the 7 horse on top. This race, I think, really sets up well for a horse towards the front. And so I agree with the point that you made there. I think the 7 draws outside of all the speed, and Tyler Gaffalione jumps on. And if you've been following Gulfstream at all, this guy is hot right now. And 8-1 on the morning line. I thought, hey, I think this horse is going to pop today. First time out for Baxter. Very good trainer, especially at this level. So I liked all the signs. And so it's kind of weird. We both kind of think, okay, let's try to get a horse that has early speed. And I know I'm a totally different one than the 2 you used. So I don't know. Did you use number 7 on your ticket?
I didn't use number 7, and I didn't, so this is, to your point, you try to find value. And I think in a race like this, again, lower level claiming, there's a lot of value to be found. And I think you can go in a lot of different directions. Obviously, we kind of went in different directions. One of the things, as we kind of transition into the new year, you kind of want to see what jockeys are hot and what kind of rides they're going to be getting in terms of coming from out of town tracks. So for example, Tyler Gaffalione just kind of made his way down there. And some of the other riders like Miguel Vasquez is there all the time. I think that's an angle that a lot of people don't really factor in. And we kind of take that into account. So at the same time, we kind of have to understand that, different riders have different connections and things like that. When they come down here, we kind of seen Todd Pletcher, come down and have an exorbitant amount of success because he has the connections, has the riders and things like that. So I agree. This is one of those races where you could have a lot of different opinions. And I think right off the bat, we do. So yeah. I like that. And that's the way, you're going to create value. I thought this was a wide open race.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. You could be wrong, or we both could be wrong. I definitely think that this is not a type of spot where you're just kind of looking at those shorter prices and just kind of looking to move on.
Totally agree, and that's why I'll get into a couple other horses here. The 11, like what I see, I think this horse last time out was just way in over his head, right? I mean, I drew a line through that completely. But you look at the Monmouth races, 2 back and 3 back. This horse can definitely compete here. So I thought he made a lot of logical sense, and I think 5-1 is a pretty square price. I did use the outside horse, the 12 discretionary mark as well. Irad Ortiz jumps aboard for a barn that he never really rides for, and I think that's a great sign. And listen, Irad in a $16,000 claimer here at Gulfstream, yeah, I know it's a Wednesday, but still, he's not going to jump on just some, loser horse. Like, he's not going to jump on some idiot here. So I think it bodes to say that horse has a shot as well. I also used in the try box the 5 Oak Bluffs. It kind of, to our point of, okay, we're trying to look for speed, but we have mentioned a lot of horses that do have speed. So if it falls apart, I kind of like this horse to jump up, especially for my aspect of handicapping this, of deciding, hey, I'm going to play a try. I kind of got to think about, okay, who could finish second and third and run up late? I think that's the perfect candidate here. So those are the 4 horses that I used in the trifecta box, 5, 7, 11, 12. Just real quick, let me get into why my strategy was for this race to attack it with a try. Like I mentioned at the start, I like number 7 Apache Brave on top. And a lot of times when I like a value horse on top, I'll just play it to win or win place, just depending on what I think the odds are going to be. With Apache Brave, I didn't like him enough to put all the eggs in the basket, right? And then you look at this race, a big key to playing multis. Okay, how big is the field? 12 horses. That's great. If this was a 6-horse field and I liked an 8-1, I'm probably not going to play that try. I'm probably going to try to pound the win. But you got 12 horses, and as you mentioned at the top of the show, or at the top of the preview for this race, it's very wide open. You could go a lot of different ways. We like different horses in this race. That's what makes a good try bet. So you're going to a 4-horse trifecta box for 50 cents is $12. I'm thinking At worst, I could get 50 or 60 back if it hits, maybe towards that 80 to 100 range, depending on how it comes in and what positioning. That's what you want. You want at least 5-1 on a try if you're going to bet and hit it. You don't want to play a $12 try box and trying to make 20, 25 bucks on it. You want to get that value. I think it's perfect for this race. So that's why I chose the try.
Yeah, and I want to just dive into Oak Bluffs real quick because I think we're on the same page. We targeted horses with speed, but I think I went through the field, and I think Oak Bluffs is the horse that would be able to close. Obviously, Mary Epler does well down there. Paco Lopez does well also. So that was the horse that I targeted that said, look, if this thing will heat up and melt down quick, that would be the horse that I would point to that I think I would label as the best closer. If you have a different opinion, that's probably one of those where we've seen these on the front end get won a lot, even if the fractions are quick because the race just it's quick. It's 5 furlongs, 5/8. But that would be, I think we're kind of on the same page that if there kind of was a horse to close, that would probably be the one that we kind of both agree on. So again, 2 different opinions, and that's great. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. We love this stuff. That's what's going to drive prices up. We don't want 6 to 5 on everything. And that's why I went a little bit deeper in the first leg. And you went with a 4-horse trifecta box because there could be prices. And again, we both could be wrong. So that's the perfect way to kick off the late pick 4 sequence. So if you don't have anything else, let's move on to race 8. It's going to be allowance optional claiming $35,000 for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward that haven't won $10,000 other than a maiden, claiming starter, all that great stuff. So this is going to be a mile, 1-turn mile, 8 furlongs on the dirt. We'll start with you, Aaron. How did you see this race kind of playing out?
Well, out of the 4 races, this is the one I truly hate as far as what I'm trying to do here is going race by race because I don't have a strong opinion. So that always sucks, right? So it's like, okay, what am I going to do here? And I am not the kind of person or handicapper, and this is no knock on people that are, but I am not the kind that I'm going to make up a bunch of reasons to play like the 3 Puppet Master and the 4 Sammy Sunshine because they're 12-1 and 10-1. I will play them if I like them, but I'm not just going to say, okay, here's 3 or 4 horses that I like. They're not in the mix. Well, I'll throw them in there and hope for some luck. Like I don't do that. So that kind of sucks. So it's an 8-horse field. I like the 4 top choices in the race. So from my perspective, it's like, what the hell do I do here? If I'm playing all 10 races on the card, going race by race, to be completely honest, this is going to be a skip race for me because there's just not a lot of value for me. There's just the way I like to bet. It just doesn't set up well for me. So I did put the favorite on top, number 2, Recoded. This filly has won 2 times in a row. Yes, it's at a lower level, but I don't love really anybody in this race. It's an allowance race by name only. I don't think it's really strong. So I put Recoded on top. Claimed last time out by Tomlinson. Tomlinson, a solid trainer, nothing earth-shattering to really worry about one way or the other there. So, and again, I think this is another race where you're going to want a horse close to the lead, and Recoded is going to do that. And I also think the 6 Adeline Trail is also going to do that as well for Todd Pletcher. So those were the 2 I put on top.
Yeah. So, and again, we're going to go different. I'm going to just counteract. I completely what you guys said about Recoded, and he is in good form, even with the barn changes. I think that's important. The only thing I push back on, I don't know if this is necessarily what he wants to do. He did go a mile last time out, and I think that's important to point out, like you did. And I don't disagree. But he only has 2 races going this distance in his life. And if we kind of looked at his races over the summer, in Kentucky, he sprinted. Now, he had a mixed bag when he sprinted, so one can make the case, well, he didn't want to sprint. To your point, though, if we look at the 2 races where he finished 7th, look at his odds, almost 17-1 and 37.5, almost 38-1. So one can make the case he just was outclassed. So I do what you want with those, and one of those being on the turf at Kentucky Downs, probably looked like a spot look. We'll just throw him in there. It's a boutique meet. Let's do it. So I get where you're going with Recoded, and I would have included him if I could go a little bit deeper. Abilene Trail, I can't get behind a horse like this. And the only reason I couldn't He started at Saratoga and Belmont last year, so he was on the NYRA circuit for Pletcher. And he took money in the second start and was awful. Okay, fine. He comes back in 2020. She comes back in 2020, looks a little bit better. They're going to give her more distance. They start her out a long, lengthy layoff. We're talking 13, 14 months. Wins. Okay, maybe she's found a new trick or trade. Awful. Going a mile last time out. Yeah. This is a completely awful. And again, like, we talk about horses. Some horses just are prone to taking money. She is prone to taking money. It's a Pletcher. You're going to get Irad, who probably is the best rider that she's had. Fair enough. That's a horse where I said, you know what, I could do without. So I'm with you on Recoded. Abilene Trail, I think you're going to have to swallow a short price, and it's not going to be entirely necessary. And two horses I look to, excuse me if I'm pronouncing her wrong, Alizi. Again, excuse me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And the reason I went there is this. Edgard Zayas does pick up the mount again. Okay, that's fine for the third time in a row. Okay, fine. She wasn't great. I think those races that she's coming out of are just much, much, much tougher. She was able to finish third and fourth, and she I don't know what her best running style is, and that's the thing that scares me a little bit about her. Like you talked about, Recoded's going to be the front end. I think she's going to sit that trip right behind Recoded in a horse maybe like Sammy Sunshine. So that's where I'm kind of looking for the whole. Can she sit in that third, fourth gap? Because this is a relatively short field. She won't have a problem getting to the rail. Edgard's more than capable. And I think at 9-2, that's a relatively decent price that I want to include. So I had her on top more for the value. The other horse is Aracindi. She was kind of really running at this level, but I think she's going to be sitting even a better trip. I've kind of looked at that. One of the things I like to do is kind of draw out a little square of where I think they're going to be placed. And I think she's really going to be sitting behind the Recodeds and the Sammy Sunshine and things like that. I don't know if there's enough speed where I really wanted to lock in on a closer like a Global Ambition or anything like that, or even a Perspire, who I do like a little bit. So that's kind of where I went. And now that you kind of talked me into Recoded, I kind of wish I included her. I just think, as we kind of agree, that I just think that's a little bit short of a price. And I just really question if this is what she ultimately wants to do. I'm not doubting her talent. And she was able to win it a mile. So that answers some of the questions. And to be honest, I've seen Julien Leparoux so far at Gulfstream. He's been struggling.
Yeah.
The good thing is he's won on before. That's nice. He's won a couple times. And he's got to get to the lead. I don't think the instructions are all that difficult. If you're trying to navigate, if you're trying to come from behind, I think that's important. Julian, get to the lead. Julian, get to the lead. It's not that difficult. But I think it's more of a price. I wish we could kind of swap prices with maybe Aracindi. But I think this is a race, right? Kind of like you pointed out, don't get too cute. I think kind of lock in on a few shorter prices for whatever your reason is. And like you said, this is an AOC race. I'm not really sure if it is. But I really want to focus in on Alizi, excuse me, just because I think those were real AOC races that she comes out of. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, and so I did, like you said, kept it simple, did $5 to win place on the two Recoded. And listen, I can hear like the future anger in your voice when Julien Leparoux doesn't send this horse. Like you already have it in your mind that that's going to happen, and for good reason, because he usually doesn't. But the encouraging thing is 2 races back, he did send her to the lead. So that's good, right? And like I said, you've drawn inside of all the other speed. It's like, hey, just send, right? And there's really, the 6 Abilene Trail, sure, that's the other speed in the race, but Recoded should be faster. So yeah, I'm with you. So the other thing with the horses that you talked about, and these, we like the same horses basically. It's like, okay, Alize got beat by 19 1/4, 2 back, 15 last time. It's like, oh, I can't get excited about that horse. Abilene Trail, to your point, you're exactly right. Got beat 19 3/4 last time out. And these races were at Gulfstream Park West, where it's supposed to be easier. So, and then Aracindi, that's the one that's been competitive, did get beat by 12 1/2, 2 back, but last time out only got beat by 4. So that's why I looked at Recoded, and it's like, well, sure, you're in claiming races, and now this is an allowance, but come on, these horses suck. So, I mean, if this was a $25,000 claimer, everybody would go, yeah, I can see that. So, I don't want to rely on these shit horses, for lack of a better word. So it's like, all right, I'm going to invest a little amount of my bankroll. My total bankroll I used was $52. I'm allowing $10 for this race. And I'll just take a shot with Recoded and hopefully, $5 win place and hope she wins. And if she finishes second, well, at least I'm going to break even here and get out of it and go to the next.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk about all the time real quick with Recoded, the 40,000 claimer, well, it's a claimer, yeah, but the races there at Churchill are extremely competitive. I would say that 40,000 claimer, you can make the case is probably just better than this race. So it's not just, it's important to know as we kind of talk through this and kind of to break it down, just because it says claiming doesn't mean the race is worse. So that's
right.
Part one. Part two, without LSZ again, I was really targeting that July 3rd race where I thought the AOC 25 was kind of similar to the to this race, AOC 35. And I was kind of just, to be honest, throwing the rest of them out, like you point out, because they weren't really great. And in the races, she was competitive. She stayed competitive. So, yeah, I think this is a race where, if you're playing out there, keep it short. Try to lock in on a few short prices. Or I think Recoded, if you're willing to just single one, that's probably the one you would single. I was just looking for a little bit more value as we're playing the sequence here. Race number 9, we're talking about AOC races. Let's continue that theme. This is allowance optional claiming for $16,000 for Florida bred 3-year-olds and upwards that haven't won a race other than maiden claiming or starter, or haven't won 2 races at the claiming price of $16K. I'll start with this one, folks. I had no idea. This race is incredibly difficult. I had 5 on the ticket. I'll start with the horse that you like, and Shamrocket, and there's no reason to not like this horse. Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz. You'll see that combination a lot down here, and I think that's important. Comes out of a stakes race at Kentucky Downs, and to be honest with you, was really, really competitive in that race. There's the only thing that's a slight concern to me is the layoff. Okay, fine. Todd Pletcher layoffs, not an issue. I just saw this as a race where I wanted to try to find some speed again because I didn't see a lot on paper. And some of these races, it's a 10-horse field. Some of these can be a merry-go-round. I don't know if the only reason I put Shamrocket as second. Obviously, when you see the ticket at the bottom, it's only numerical order. But, on my product and things like that, I would have had this horse second. And I'm with you for all the points that you're going to make. This horse just outclasses the rest of the field. It's really simple. I was just a little bit concerned about the trip and if he's going to have to come from way off in a relatively slow pace. If that's not a concern of someone's, then you could pretty much eliminate a lot of other horses. And that's why, in my opinion, I went deep just because of that angle, of the pace angle. It's not a matter of the horse. And that's why I want to give it to you, because I know you're probably a lot higher on him than I am. So I'm going to throw it to you. Tell me why you like Shamrocket so much.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw your ticket structure, and I didn't see it until we came on the show, actually. I hadn't even looked at it. So you went 5 deep in a race. I would probably go 1 or 2 deep. So it's funny how we're completely kind of opposite here. Look, this is the horse I like best out of the 4 races. Let's just touch on this. First time for Todd Pletcher. I love that angle. I just don't think, this horse was trained by Christophe Clement. Now Todd Pletcher has him. I love that. Irad Ortiz jumps aboard. I love that. I mean, that combination, Pletcher, Irad Ortiz at Gulfstream is just money. And it has been for years. We know that. Listen, and they talked about this on the Magic Mike show a lot, and they're right. Horses that have come out of Kentucky Downs this meet have been fantastic, really good. And if you watch the replay last time out, I would venture to say this was the best horse in that stakes race at Kentucky Downs. This horse bobbled bad at the start, got way behind. Yes, the horse comes from behind, but not 11th, 8 behind, 7 behind. No, more like 5th, 6th, 3 or 4 behind. He got way too far behind, and when that happened, he was just screwed. But he still came with a big run. Also, the layoff you mentioned again with Pletcher, that really doesn't bother me. So I'm not really worried about that. I actually like that the pace might be a little slower in here. I would be a little bit worried if the pace was quick. Here's why. I think the one problem with Shamrocket is the 1 mile. I think he does want longer. So if there were some burners out front and they really got separation from him, maybe he can't close and win the race. But to me, if the pace is projected to be a little bit slow, that might put him closer to those front runners where he doesn't have as much to do going this 1 mile distance. So that was kind of the final factor that swayed me. And that's kind of that's just a difference in opinion sometimes with handicappers. Sometimes people would look at a situation like this and say, boy, he's got to have the speed. But on the turf, I almost kind of like it when a closer is a little closer just because there's not as much speed. So for those reasons, yeah, I put $20 to win on Shamrocket. This is the horse I feel strongest about. There's a horse in the next race that I almost did kind of the same thing, but I ended up kind of pivoting because it's a little bit of a lower class race. And there's kind of a horse that's just kind of a mystery that we'll talk about. And they talked about at length on a Magic Mike show about 4 weeks ago. I'm actually excited to talk about him. But for this race specifically, I'm all in on Shamrocket. The last factor was I just don't really like anybody else in this race.
Yeah, and that's to your point, and I just want to add to that. That's one of the things, right? So I think this is a race, if you're playing, especially the multi-race, if you don't like Shamrocket, you're looking at a multitude of other options. I don't think you're just saying Shamrocket and one, like a plus one. I think you're saying Shamrocket and plus 3, 4, or 5 even, and that's the direction I went. So I think we're on the same page there. I'm not against Shamrocket. I'm just saying I think there could be a horse that, I don't know. So we've seen some prices coming to Gulfstream that didn't make any sense. I'll be the first one to admit. So I think this could be a race that you could do that with.
Well, to be fair, I totally agree with what you just said. If you're not going to if you're like, okay, I'm going to look at Shamrocket and think like maybe I just hate the mile for him or the layoff, like you mentioned, and you're going to expand outside of that horse 100%. And that's why I think if your opinion on Shamrocket isn't strong, the way you structured the ticket is right, because he's not going to win. Holy cow, this gets crazy, right?
Yeah, and that's one of right to your point. And the other thing, and I'm happy we're talking about Shamrocket, as he should be the favorite. He's got Pletcher, he's got Irad Ortiz. Makes sense, should be the favorite. Not denying that. Forget about the layoff for a minute. This horse was running, obviously, against much tougher maiden special weights earlier in the year at Gulfstream, at Belmont, ran a tough AOC. That's fine. I don't deny any of that. He's the class of the field. Does this horse, to you at least, have an angle? And what I mean by that is he ran into stakes, like you said, was one of the better horses. Forget it. You got to really watch the replay to understand the third place finish could be much better. We could be talking a stakes win. It seems like this horse, he's not in for the tag. It could be a horse where Pletcher's kind of like, you know what? Let's just get him maybe feeling right off the layoff. Maybe we'll get back to those tougher AOC races, or maybe one of those races that it's a stakes race. It's not all that difficult, maybe, and they could work their way up. And that was my angle and push back, obviously, when I'm finished with this point, that it's like maybe this isn't the end goal for him. So I was looking at it like, let's just get him back into fitness. That's really, one of the reasons as well. If he's just better, he might just be better, and it might not make a difference. So that's kind of where my alter thinking went as well.
I think it's a good point, and it does have the feel, because here, you're coming out of a $750,000 stakes, and now Pletcher's got him, and he's throwing him in a Florida-bred allowance race, right? So it kind of does have that feel of, let's put him in a race. It's not very difficult. Let's see what we have in him. Let's see what he's all about. It could be Pletcher just saying, hey, let's get a barometer on this horse. It also could be Pletcher saying, he hasn't won in a while. He's only won once. Right. And let's build some confidence. Let's get him an easy win here, and then we can springboard. One way or the other, this is a springboard to something. He has a plan for this horse. So it's almost like we had the same idea and we used it for different betting strategies. I used it as well. This is just a prep and he'll win easy. You use it as well. It's a prep and they're maybe just experimenting and let's go deep. And neither one is really wrong logically. One of us will be wrong, in reality here in a few hours.
Right. And exactly. And that's, again, we'll just keep hammering home that point. We understand he's going to be the favorite. I'm playing him, as Mike Somich says, a little bit more of a defensive use. I'm not saying he can't win, and I'm not saying he's not talented. You're a little bit more bullish. That's fine. I'm extremely bullish as well, just not to that degree. And like we kind of talked about earlier, if you're tuning in here, you're kind of either all in on Shamrocket or you're in on a bunch of them. So I think, to kind of sum it up, I'm in on a bunch and you're kind of like, let's go with Shamrocket. Even if he's got a few question marks, he just looks like the most talented horse on paper. And I think that's kind of where we stand here.
Real quick before you move on, I don't know if you listed your other.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So we're going to go through. I'll go through the logical horses that we kind of talked about. I'm using Croy. I think he's going to be on the front end. I really think he had the one. He had the one race on the dirt. He's coming into Eddie Keneally, and I think Luis Saez will put him on the front end. Luis Saez was aboard in a 7-furlong race that was off the turf back in May. And I think if you know Luis Saez, he wants to be on the lead. I think he works best with horses that are going to get to the front. So I think that's logical, 4-1, maybe a touch short, depending on how much Shamrocket's going to take. But I think that's an important use. I think my point exactly, I've seen these horses that out of these poor starter optional claiming races, the races aren't as bad as they look on paper. These horses tend to run well. I think Paco Lopez, another one, he's going to be on the front end as well. He was just 3/4 of a length behind. I think the AOC races and pushback are a little bit tougher than the SOC starter optional claimings. They're pretty much about the same when it comes to Florida. They really will go to the lower levels, the 12.5s, the 16,000s, 25,000s. So I think this race is pretty similar, and I think he'll probably sit right off of Croy. I expect Croy to be on the front end. The horse that I kind of want to get your opinion is Freedom Matters. Joe Bravo's going to pick up the mount. Alan Owinski won with his one of two starters. This horse came out of a really similar race back at Gulfstream Park West last month, and he's going to be on the front end too. We're kind of looking through this. The further I get, I'm including Shamrock, but I just think he's going to have to swing wide or hope things open up. A lot of these horses are going to want to get on the front end. It's kind of how aggressive are we and how much are we pushing each other? If a horse like Croy or Freedom Matters gets it relatively easy, I think we'll start to see it slow down. I think if Croy and Freedom Matters kind of get to where they want to be, or even a horse I'm looking at like a Super Watson out of the 2 posts with Mark Casse, I don't know. It might heat up a little bit quicker. So that's one of the, I think that question, once it's answered, will give us a better opinion on the race. The horse I really wanted to talk about, obviously other than the logical ones, is Super Watson, and I want to get your opinion on him. He came back and won with relative ease, non-state bred race at Gulfstream Park West last month. Okay, 7.5 furlongs, so it's only an extra half furlong. If you watch the replay, which I did, the half furlong won't make a difference based on that race. I like these types of races that they go from non-state bred competition, especially at the maiden special weight level, when they move up the ladder. I kind of like this angle where they kind of move up. I think at 12-1, this is a horse you do not want to leave off. I know Mark Casse hasn't been winning down there. That's fine. You take a look at his numbers. His horses are running extremely well. Mind you, not only do you have your Georgina Baxters, your Jeff Anglers, the trainers that are kind of there, you have Pletcher now. You have Eddie Keneally. Mike Maker is obviously full in force down there, but you have a lot of trainers starting to, Mike Trombetta, you're kind of making your way down there, and competition is getting real difficult. So obviously Miguel Vasquez, as Mike Somich pointed out to me, off his mounts. I apologize for that as well. But nonetheless, this horse, we're talking about moving up the angle, and Mark Casse, obviously well-known up north of the border. This horse looked really good off the layoff, and maybe he's just trending in the right direction. Is that a horse that you would give any consideration to in a multi-race ticket, or are you just saying, look, this horse isn't that good? Or is maybe this not his right distance? Kind of tell me maybe what you were thinking or some of the other logical horses that I kind of went through.
Yeah, I looked at Super Watson a little bit. The main thing for me, it's like, okay, he won that race at Gulfstream Park West. Now we're at regular Gulfstream. I don't like that angle very well. So I don't know. I thought about him for a second though. I don't think it's a terrible use. I just kind of passed on him. Also, Edgar Zaya's aboard now. I don't know. I think that horse could hit the board. I don't really think it's a win candidate. Croy, I think that's a logical horse, but was with the Diodoro barn and really wasn't doing anything. Now goes to Keneally. I just didn't like it. Can Croy win this race? Sure, but that was just another reason. It's like, yeah, I don't love that horse. And now, facing a horse like Shamrocket, I just don't think Croy is going to get the job done. Now, Freedom Matters, I could see it. I think the trip is going to have to be right. And I'm questionable if he's going to get that trip. But if something happens where he's kind of out on the front, maybe he can hold him off. The thing that I don't like is he's faded in both of his last two races, especially two back. $25,000 claimer at Gulfstream Park West. You've got the lead and you couldn't hold it. And then last time out at going 7.5 furlongs, just couldn't hold the lead again. So I didn't love him. At the end of the day, it's just like, if Shamrocket just runs, this horse should beat these other horses. There's all kinds of problems. Shamrocket's not without issue, the 1 mile distance being the biggest one for sure, but he's got far less issues, in my opinion, than the rest of the horses in the race. So, that's why it's like, listen, $20 to win on this horse, and I think you'll get 8, 9 to 5. I think it's enough value to play the horse to win.
Yeah, exactly. And then the more reason I guess I was looking at Super Watson, and I'm guessing you'll agree, I don't know if he's that much worse than a horse like Croy.
Right.
So if we were going to get 12 to 1,
yep,
you might hate Super Watson and you don't want to include him. And you might love Croy and you want to put Croy on top. But if we're looking at just morning line odds, and you could give as much info and put into that as much as you want, 12 to 1 or 4 to 1, I'll take 12 to 1. With Super Watson versus 4 to 1, like you pointed out with Croy, he seems like he's going in the wrong direction. Now, I will point out with Croy, I think his better races have come necessarily on the turf. I'll point that out. He was on the dirt, but to your point, like he just doesn't necessarily look the best on form. And if we're going with his races over the summer, he's not good enough to be at the AOC 62.5. Let's be realistic. And at the 50 claiming, I don't know. He showed some speed, relatively slow pace, almost 50 seconds to the half. But that's what I was talking about before. I think it's going to be relatively slow, and that was my kind of thing against Shamrocket. Forget about the Todd Pletcher. Where do we kind of place this horse? I think it is going to be slower, even though some horses will try to get to the lead. Luis Saez, look, if you watch horse racing enough, Luis Saez wants to be on the front end. He'll tell you he wants to be on the front end, and he'll tell anyone who's in charge, I'm going to the front end. It's really simple. So that's really why I like Croy. But to your point, Freedom Matters. My point exactly. Again, to sum it up before we move on, you like Shamrocket or you like a bunch. So, and that's, I think we kind of stand on the same page. But if you are going to go against Shamrocket, you might want to look at a few prices as well. So let's hit the final race here. This is claiming for 20,000 through 16,000 for 3-year-olds and upward, which have never won 2 races. For each 2,000, you're going to get £1, all that good stuff. I'll let you you listened to the Magic Mike show. You kind of gave a little inkling to it. I want you to kick this off. Tell me how you were looking at it as we kind of hit the final race here of the day.
Yeah, so the Magic Mike show covered the late pick 4 on opening day at Gulfstream Park, and this horse, number 6, French Reef, was in the last race that day, and he poses a big problem that day, right? Because he drops from running maidens and allowances and earning decent numbers. Not his race, last time out, coming into the one last time out, I should say, so 2 back now, was bad. But before that, he had been a really good horse. Chad Brown trained, and now he drops to the 20K claiming level. So he's in the race. On numbers, it's like, holy shit, he is 30 links better than the rest of this field. Oh, he's Chad Brown. I mean, in a $20,000 claimer. So it was like, yeah, he could win easy, but there's got to be something major wrong with him. So we approached him as the classic defensive use, as they like to say, of, yeah, you got to use him, because if he wins by 5, you're going to look at the PPs and go, well, sure, he looks like he's going to win by 5. But he also might have 3 legs. And if he has 3 legs, I don't think he's going to win. And he's probably going to finish way off the board. So that's how all of us kind of approached him. So what happened was very confusing. He ran a winning race, and he still lost. He got the lead. He got beat by a head. He didn't run back to his previous numbers, but he didn't run a bad number either. So our thought process was he'll win by 5 or he'll get 8th. Well, he ran well and lost. So it's kind of weird. Now he gets claimed from Brown, which I actually think, I mean, it's not ever a good thing to leave the Brown barn, but listen, it's a $20,000 claimer on the turf. He's probably better in a claiming barn, which is what he's in now. The key to me and why I used him on top here, and believe me, I never thought I would use this horse on top ever, but Tyler Gaffalione jumps aboard for a trainer that he's rode for 3 times in the last year. And have they won any of those 3? No, but they've hit the board 2 out of 3 times, these 2 connections when they hook up. So it's like, yeah, he's on horses that can run. You know, if it was 3 mounts and they never sniffed the board, then maybe I don't go for it. But Gaffalione picking up the mount, it was enough for me to think, yeah, I like number 6 French Reef a lot. I almost said, okay, this is going to be the horse I bet to win. But I thought, no, a $20,000 claimer, he still has question marks. The wheels could still come off this horse. But I put 6 French Reef on top.
Yeah, and I'll get into French Reef as well. A few points I want to tack on, because I also had French Reef on top. The biggest thing that horse players like to do is why they don't like a horse. I don't like a horse for this. I don't like a horse. Okay, fine. You don't like a horse. Someone's got to win the race. As far as I know, the way horse racing works, someone has to win. You can't not have a winner. Someone's got to win. So you got to look at the rest of the field and say, okay, who has a chance? Both of our tickets, we have all-inclusive. Okay, all-inclusive wasn't great. It's a 20,000 just a week later, not in the same race, December 9th. French Reef comes out of a race on December 2nd. Okay, he finished 4th by 3rd. And what did he really do? Mike Somich taught me this. Who did he pass? He didn't really make up any ground. He didn't make up any lanes. What did he do? He went from what? 5th and then gradually made his way to 4th? I mean, I don't know. What did he do? Okay, well, rewatch that replay and tell me what all-inclusive did. Okay, great. Surprise factor, lost to French Reef last time out on December 2nd. That's the horse that comes in at 9-2 on the morning line. What did that horse really do in that race? You can make the case, what did French Reef really do? But he was on the lead. What is he supposed to do? Beat space? What is he supposed to beat air? I mean, the horse was on the lead. I don't know. The race wasn't all that quick, which is definitely a down tick. But at the same time, you just got to look at other horses and say, where do you really go? Obviously, your ticket is 6 over 5'11", and I just touched on all of them. But are they better than French Reef? I think we would both say not. So I also included the 5 all-inclusive, and the only reason I did that over the 11 is because he didn't face him. If the 11 hadn't faced him, probably would have used surprise factor. So I think we're kind of on the same page. And to back up your point about Chad Brown, look, Chad's a great guy, got a ton of horses, especially on the turf in his barn. He doesn't need a 20,000 claimer. That's not going to keep him up at night. Like he doesn't need that. So he belongs in a barn, like a Rohan Crichton, something that's going to be consistently claiming, in that type of area. So it's like, well, Chad Brown didn't want him. Right, you're right. Chad Brown doesn't need a 20,000 claimer. So it's not necessarily this horse doesn't have any talent or there's something wrong with him. It's just he doesn't need him. The one thing to be wary of, like you pointed out, this horse consistently takes money. More times than not, doesn't run well. Okay, but he did last time. Mm-hmm. He lost by a head. He was 4-5. I don't know. You can make the case that French Reef was still the winner of the race, ran the better race over King of Rock. I mean, like to your point, Tyler Gaffalione picks up a mount for a trainer he doesn't ride for. So where could he have gone? Okay, you can make the case. We can kind of go through this and say there are probably a few other trainers that he maybe would have, rode for if, again, you get to like a Mike Maker, and that's obviously Miguel Vasquez was aboard, but like he took this horse. He took a horse that he won't normally ride, and to be honest, probably won't ride again. I also think sorry.
No, real quick to your point, because it's good that you're saying that, and I'll address what Dennis says here. He says, I think for a win place, I would take the 1. Dennis, I like the 1, but here's why I didn't. And this was really good timing with what Ricky was saying. Look who rode the 1 last time out to a victory, Tyler Gaffalione. Look who the trainer of the 1 is, Mike Maker. Gaffalione would rather ride for Mike Maker. Mike Maker has more horses, better horses that Tyler could get on in the future. Tyler could do Mike Maker a favor and ride this number 1 again, and that would be fine. He didn't. He jumps off the 1 to the 6 to a guy that he probably, like you just said, he doesn't care if he gets another ride from that trainer ever. Now maybe they're friends off the track, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but in general, if he never rides for the trainer of the 6 again, he's not going to lose a lot of sleep over it, right? He jumped on the 6 because he thinks he's the better horse, period. That's the only reason. And so that was my big thing, because again, when I saw him entered, it's like, okay, here he is again, this bastard. What are we going to do with him this time? But this time, in the weirdest way, all the signs are positive for French Reef. Like all the intangibles, where last time all the intangibles were completely negative for French Reef. So he's done a 180, as far as the intangibles go. And also, even that race last time out is definitely good enough to win today. So it just made sense. How I structured or how I came up with and why I structured it as an exacta. Like I said, kind of at the beginning, I didn't really want to put $20 to win on French Reef, who's probably going to be like, 4 to 5 even money by the time this thing gets going. So I just didn't. I don't like to do that on claimers, like, ever. I will bet a 4 to 5 or even money shot if it's a stake, like Monomoy Girl in the Breeders' Cup. Hey, I'll take even money. Yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that on a $20,000 claimer in the last race. Five furlongs on the turf on a Wednesday at Gulfstream Park. I just don't think that's how you win. But I do like the horse enough to put on top, so I put him on top, and then threw the 5 and the 11 underneath. And kind of to your point, who's really going to pass horses here? I'm not really sure anybody really wants to. So it could just go 6, 5, 11, and they kind of run that way all the way around the track. So that's how I ended it. $5 exacta, 6 over 5.11.
Yeah. Before I get to the 1 real quick, to your point off French Reef, when you see a horse drop from an allowance at Belmont or Saratoga and come to this, you kind of want to, that's like a litmus test. We talk about this all the time, where you want to kind of see how far they fall. We kind of saw him at the 20,000 level. We kind of know what he is. The race before, we didn't really necessarily know how far he was going to fall. So I think that's important here. And to the 1, so we kind of know a little bit more about Montigny. About the 6 French Reef. The 1 Montigny, he was 1 to 2. I mean, he's supposed to win that race. And you can make the case that he's moving up the ladder, maybe figured out how to win. I do like that he did it on the turf. So I get that. But I mean, Mike Maker is more than happy with if this horse leaves the barn. I don't think he's going to be right. There's going to be a press release of Mike Maker praying that this horse didn't get claimed. He doesn't really care. The horse went for $300,000 a couple years ago. I think it's fair to say it's a relative disappointment now that he's in this race. And to Mike Somich's point, look, you don't like French Reef? All right, let's start looking for prices. I mean, there's a lot of weight. You're kind of, as we kind of talked about Shamrocket, Wild One Forever, he is a turf sprinter. I'm not a fan of Marcos Meneses. I don't think anyone out there is gonna be. But Fernando Abreu is a quality rider. Trainer. The other point I would like to include and tell me, and this is one of the angles that I learned a long time ago, especially in stakes races, maybe not necessarily here. Fernando Abreu has 2 runners. If you like one, you might want to include the other, especially in stakes races. When you see a horse that's 2-1 on morning line, maybe not, at the odds, you might, if there's a 10-1, you might want to include the 10-1 also, because there's a strong sense that trainer, male, female, whatever, isn't strong enough with that one horse. They're going to try to attack it with 2 or 3. The only one I'll push back is like a Chad Brown in a turf. He thinks all of them can win. But I think that's a very rare type of thing. So if you like the Fernando Abreu 8, you might want to look at the Fernando Abreu 7, Mr. Nappy. I obviously will prefer Paco over Marcos Meneses any day of the week. But what do you think of Mike Somich's horse Wild One Forever?
Yeah, I really wasn't interested in the 10. He said the 8 and the 10 are the bombs that he wants to go with. The 10, I don't know. The 8, we did say, well, who's going to pass? Well, this horse last time, he did pass some horses. So I definitely think that is a sneaky one. And if you think the pace is going to fall apart, he's one that could pick up the pieces. I think, like, my issue with a horse like this, and this probably bothers me a lot more than Somich, and maybe it's a flaw of mine, 40-1 2 races back, 46-1 last time out. Like, the horse just never takes money. And, I don't know. I usually, when I see that, it's like, maybe he's just not very good, But again, that just could be a flaw when I look at things, and maybe you shouldn't look at it, but I've always kind of looked at that and been a little worried when I see it. Last point on this race, at least for me, on the one horse, Montagne, my trainer, Kelly Von Hemel, I'll never forget this. We had a maiden claimer. He broke his maiden for $15,000 maiden claimer. And the next race he was in a $75,000 claimer. And I text Kelly and I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, he just want the 15 level. He goes, no, idiot. When you run maiden claimers, the good rule of thumb is half that price the next time when they're facing winners. So if we put him in a $15,000 claimer, he's going to get last. If we throw him in the 7,500, that's his friends. That's where he should be. So you look at the one, he won at the $20,000 level last time out, but it was a maiden claiming race. So a good rule of thumb is if he was in a $10,000 claimer today, he might be in the right type of level. So that's just kind of a, I don't know if that's an old school mentality or not, but that's what Kelly Von Hemel taught me back in the day. So, he's smarter than I am when it comes to spotting horses. So I'll take his word for that one.
Yeah, and I'm not nearly as experienced as you, but that's the rule that I've learned. So obviously that's kind of progressed over the years. So yeah, again, if you don't like French Reef, if you're saying screw that horse, I've lost too much money on French Reef, you might want to try to find a price. I'm not all in on all inclusive. I'm not really all in on surprise factor either. I think we kind of just said, look, there's not enough value on maybe just singling French Reef for you in terms of your exact. And for me, I don't want to be the guy that sits here and says, great, I singled French Reef. Here we go again. I'm going to have to sweat out a short price, because I think all inclusive more or less will probably, he might tick up. So
well, the thing I just real quick, I'll like about all inclusive, this is Irad Ortiz Jr. riding for a trainer who, why is he riding for him? So go ahead.
No, and that's fair. And to your point, if we want to talk about the handicapping angle, he was in the maiden optional claiming, which is only a Woodbine thing for anyone interested. Then he dropped down to the 20. So it's not quite half, but it's that direction that you were just kind of referring to. You don't go to the same level. You kind of drop down maybe a little bit more than half, maybe, something in that range. Right. And like you said, the two angles, when you get to these types of races, you're not going to see a ton of big trainers. And that's the thing that I kind of want to point to. You really, really, really want to look at the riders, because more times than not, they're going to go to barns that probably aren't big, or in literally smaller barns that don't have a lot of horses. Or they're going to go to the horse that say, look, like, this just gives me the best chance. And we kind of agree that Irad and Tyler both kind of went to these two and said, we probably will never ride for these guys again, but we have to now. We're here. We're going to ride. So I think we kind of nailed this race completely. We're looking at it the same way. And if you are along with Mike Somich, just take a look at the other Fernando Abreu. If you do like Wild One Forever, I think it's, like I said before, it's important to look at those two angles. Obviously, it's more prevalent in stakes races, I think, but I will always take Paco Lopez over Marcos Meneses. So that's just how we looked at it. So again, our tickets are at the bottom. Aaron kind of went through his whole thing in terms of how he's kind of looking at it. So I'll read my ticket off real quick again, starting with race 7. I'll start with the 1, 3, 5, 12, with the 5, 7, with the 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, with the 5, 6. That's for $40.
Yep, I think that's a good budget for it. And I did a $52 budget trifecta box, 5, 7, 11, 12 in race 7. I went $5 to win place on number 2, Recoded, in race 8. Race 9, $20 to win on number 6, Sham Rocket. And then race 10, a $5 exacta, 6 over 511. French Reef, if you lose today, you're dead to me. So I will never, ever, ever talk to you again if you lose this race. You're up against dogs, and you need to win this one.
And Sham Rocket, I know you're listening. You might want to build up. You could finish second or third. Take your time. Don't worry about it. Let the horses get ahead of you. But in all seriousness, thank you for tuning in. This is our first show. We think it went amazing. We guarantee we'll be better again for any mistakes that we made. Sure, there were a few that people could point out. But again, this was a ton of fun. Obviously, the whole point of this is to kind of give it a little handicapping angle and really dive into it. And all we want to do here is try to make money. Hopefully, if you haven't done your Christmas shopping yet, hopefully this will get you going or kind of give you a little kick in the behind. Maybe spend a few more dollars here and there. But at the end of the day, we just want to have fun and talk the ponies. And I think we did that episode 1, and I can't wait to see where we kind of move on from here. We will be back next week.
Yep.
Don't have a day. It will start at 11 again. We'll figure out the day. And then, once we hit the new year, we hope you enjoy. And we're really aiming to be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Obviously, the Racing Dudes as a corporate brand, we try to do something, or you guys try to do something Saturday afternoons for the bigger stakes. Don't know if there's going to be a Malibu. There's a Malibu guide, I believe. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you for helping us set this up, because I would have been lost without you. There's a Malibu guide, so check that out. I'm not sure if it's available yet.
It should be. Malibu guide should be available this afternoon.
Okay.
It's done. It's just getting the graphics put on and everything like that. So it's almost good to go. Quick programming note. We should mention this is the first of a triple header today for the Racing Dudes content. Going on 1 p.m. Eastern. The Magic Mike Show will do I believe it's a late pick 4 at Santa Anita. So that is going to be a lot of fun. That is a great Saturday card at Santa Anita. Make sure to check that out. I know, Ricky, you'll be covering that this weekend. And then, yes, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, the live draft. So the Fantasy League draft going to happen tonight. It's going to be crazy. I don't know how. Ricky, you think it's tough managing what we did today? Holy hell, with 20 damn people and they're all insane. I mean, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, it is a great day for programming. Obviously, everyone will kind of go on their way after today or tomorrow and kind of have family time. But and that's why we really wanted to get this in on Wednesday. Before that, obviously, tune in and kind of give everyone a preview of what we're going to be doing. For the time being, we'll kind of focus on Gulfstream, especially because they're running, it seems, every day. But that's what we're kind of focusing here and obviously we'll focus in on other tracks. Maybe there's a different track that you guys want to kind of have us touch on, and we could always do that as well. We're always up for ideas and changes and different directions, always up for that. We love hearing back from you guys, and comments, emails, advice, all that good stuff is more than welcome. So tune in tonight or later this afternoon for Magic Mike. Live stream as well. If you want to see a bunch of nutcases draft their horses, that is the place to go. And it's great that we have the platform to do this. So from Aaron and I, we just want to thank you again for our first hour of the Rocket Hour for episode 1. And we will be back next week. We'll get it out to you guys when we're going to be. And again, please comment your tickets, ideas, things like that. And let's try to make Wednesday a winning one. So everyone take care. Happy Christmas. Enjoy your holidays, all that good stuff. And more importantly, stay safe during these times. So everyone take care and have a good one.